Okay. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about Dynamesh. Now, when we were working on this in one of the last tutorials, we're starting to come across the problem where we're kind of pulling and contorting the geometry pretty heavily. So there are ways to retopologize in ZBrush, and we're going to be covering those in the future. But one of the more recent developments, say in the last couple of years, that's really kind of taken the sculpting world by storm is Dynamesh. So what Dynamesh is going to do is basically retopologize this almost on the fly into basically just very even spaced polygons. And that way, every time we sculpt, we can, with just the swipe of our pen over here, create a new topology and not worry about stretched geometry. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete lower over here just to keep this clean. There's no more subdivision levels. And what I'm going to do is come down here to Dynamesh. Now, with Dynamesh, there's not a lot of options. The most important one is going to be this resolution. I'm going to leave it at 128 and hit Dynamesh. You can see that we've actually lost a little detail, and that's because it basically projected a 128 by 128 grid in all directions, basically 6 directions. You can see anywhere where they kind of touch, they get these little kind of triangulated areas, but overall it's very even, clean topology. If you want more detail, you can of course take this higher. This project button was on here, and what it did was try to reproject detail from the original surface to try to preserve as much as possible. And it used a tiny bit of blurring over here. You can see it's set to 2, just so that we didn't get very jagged detail. We're not going to cover groups or polish today. So let's see what we can do with this now. I'm going to go ahead and grab a brush called the snake hook. Now this is a very dangerous brush in that we can very easily destroy our polygons. But even if we're careful with it, we're still stretching them quite a bit. So if we take a look at that, you can see it's been pulled. However, if Dynamesh is on, all I need to do is hold Control and swipe in an empty space. It's going to say mask, which is exactly what this shortcut does, but if nothing is masked and we swipe in empty space, it actually activates a kind of a remeshing for Dynamesh. So this allows us the absolute freedom of sculpting without worrying about topology or destroying polygons. So I can go ahead and sculpt here. Maybe I'm adding in some eye sockets, whatever the heck this thing is. And if I start running out of resolution, like over there, I can just swipe here and it'll retopologize it for me. Now, if I start running out of resolution, as in I just don't have the geometry I need to get more detail, all I need to do is increase my resolution. Maybe I'll type 256. And we'll go ahead and swipe here. It's going to take a little bit longer, but there we go. We have a lot more faces now. You can see that there. And now I can continue sculpting with more resolution. Now the downside is we don't have any topology, which normally would have meant we had to go through a lot of tedious retopology techniques inside of ZBrush or TopoBrush or Maya or wherever else. However, don't worry about this too much. There's really easy retopology solutions now. For example, we're not really going to cover that in this tutorial, but just to show you how quick it can be, if I were to turn off Dynamesh over here, I could come over here to my ZRemesher, just hit ZRemesh, give that just a moment. You can see the progress up at the bar at the top. We'll let that run through. It's taking its time, but really it's kind of just evaluating the surface and figuring out where all of the loops should go. And you can see it's created some okay retopology for me. It's not the greatest. There's some weird spirals in areas. The new retopology system in ZBrush 4R7 apparently doesn't have these spirals. I don't know, I haven't tested it yet. But you can see I have a retopoed version. It's of course low res, it's lost the detail, but I could have always kept a copy of my old one and reprojected the detail into this one. Reprojection is stuff we're going to cover in the future. Just wanted to show you how easy it would be to retopo, so don't worry that we don't have any good topology here. Now, one huge downside of working with Dynamesh is that it does not play ball with subdivision levels. If I go and Dynamesh at a lower res, I'm going to lose all of this detail. So you have to be very careful building up over time. An ideal workflow is to use Dynamesh at the beginning, get all of your basic shapes in, retopologize, and then begin sculpting with subdivision levels. I'll have a tutorial up later on that's going to show you guys kind of a basic from beginning to end process of how we would start a model, do Dynamesh, convert to retopologize, convert to subdiv levels, sculpt, maybe retopo again, so on and so forth. But anyway, that's a quick look at Dynamesh.